If you're with a friend or a peer and you feel something unpleasant, I feel like I can't trust her, I feel unsafe, I feel uncomfortable, I feel judged. So that feeling is there as information to guide you. It's not only about what you say, it's about your energy. I can walk into a room and I can feel your energy without even speaking to you. I can feel whether it's positive or negative.
One of the things that this show's about, what I'm always trying to help people, is meaningful community. And that can be your family, that can be your friends, that can be, your colleagues, your schoolmates, whatever it is. And it sounds like that's a big focus of your work, is those friendships and those relationships. So that makes me think about, okay, you're working with this individual, this girl, but she has these friends who might not be getting the coaching that you have, and how do you help that girl deal with those relationships and maybe some negativity and, like you mentioned, judgment and all that?
Yeah, it's common. It really is, unfortunately. But one tool that I use with girls that I ask them, to add to their toolbox is called your emotional guidance system. So often girls are taught, and some just do this naturally, is to shove down their feelings for a wide variety of reasons, especially in friendships, because girls have learned if I show my feelings that I am annoyed or angry or sad or I feel betrayed or confused, what could come back to me as a result of that is isolation. I could be alone. And that is the biggest fear of girls. So they're doing everything they can to avoid that. So when I talk to girls about their emotional guidance system, I tell them that, we all have feelings, we all have emotions, and our emotions are there to guide us. Our emotions are giving us information. It's not a bad emotion or a good emotion. It's not something to reject and try to not feel. It's there for a purpose. So if you're with a friend or a peer and you feel something unpleasant, I feel like I can't trust her, I feel unsafe, I feel uncomfortable, I feel judged, I feel criticized, that doesn't feel good. So that feeling is there as information to guide you. So it's not black and white, like, oh, I felt judged once, I'm dumping this friend, but it is information over time. And I do often with girls to try to quantify and help them to solidify what's going on in their world. I'll ask them a lot, scale of 1 to 10, or give me a percentage. So what percentage of the time do you feel good in this girl's presence? And what percentage of the time do you feel not good? And so we want to quantify it. So if she's like, wow, 80% of the time I feel judged or criticized or not accepted or not included. So that's good information to have. So now you can take that information and you can make a decision based on that information. And it's not wrong, whatever you choose. So I'm not going to judge her and say, okay, 80% of the time you don't feel good with her, you need to dump her. What are you doing? Right? That would be really disempowering. My job is to be here for as long as it takes for her to realize for herself, that's not a person I want in my life. That doesn't feel like friendship.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm guessing that you're empowering this girl to be a little bit of a coach for her friend, because maybe the friend is struggling and there's a method of communication of being a good friend to the other that might change that relationship, and make it less than 80%. Yeah, and what I'm also hearing you say, which is a big thing for me, is awareness, right? You're asking this girl to, hey, tune in and pay attention and be aware of what's going on under the surface when you're around these people, or when you're having this conversation, or when this experience is happening. And I think again, most of us are just completely disengaged and unaware and just kind of moving through our lives.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because, I think a lot of us really feel like, well, whatever I'm thinking, that's what's guiding me. That's what I need to listen to. That's the truth, whatever thoughts are in my head. And I talk to girls all the time about your thoughts create your reality. Your thoughts create your feelings. So if you're feeling something unpleasant, notice, what am I thinking? So what I ask them often, I do this with parents too. can think of a parent this week I was working on this with, that I'm asking them to drop from their head into their heart or into their body. The body doesn't lie. The body gives us a lot of information if something is working for us or it isn't. The body gives us a signal, but we have to be quiet enough for a second and drop in to see what we're feeling.
Yeah, it's funny because my therapist always has me, hey, when she'll, if I'm talking about a difficult situation that I had this past week or whatever, she'll be like, okay, think about that situation and tell me where you feel it in your body, and then that almost always kicks off like a great a therapeutic conversation, about,
Yeah.
you know, um, how to deal with that, or where it's coming from, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to read you something, and I want to get your reaction to it.
Okay.
I found this statistic. Nearly 1 in 3 teenage girls, 30% in the United States, has seriously considered attempting suicide, which marks a 60% increase over the past decade. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my first reaction to that is a feeling. It's heartbreaking to hear. It makes me very sad. And my thinking about it is, I guess it's surprising, but it also, just working with the number of girls that I've worked with and what they're having to deal with is exponentially more than we ever had to deal with when I was their age, in my generation. And we have a world that is expecting a lot more of them, that is putting a lot more on them. They're exposed to a lot more. We have a world that in many cases can feel pretty dangerous and threatening at times. They're not immune to that or protected from that in any way. And we also have a world that talks about mental health a lot. And so they're exposed to not only discussions of mental health that can be really helpful, they're exposed to labels and diagnoses that they don't always have all the information about. And they're also exposed to ways that people handle their pain, one of which is suicide. It's around them. They're hearing it, they're seeing it, they know it's an option. And I also know from working with some, girls in my practice that sometimes they're using words like, why am I here? What is the point of all this? And it sounds like suicide, but it's because they don't have other language to say, like, I'm in pain, I'm struggling, I'm lost, I don't know how to feel better, I feel alone. So I would love to see us give them more language to better communicate their pain.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting take on it, and I think that my feeling about being in the military, suicide's a big thing. We this is a major issue that us leaders are trying to deal with, and in dealing with that with some people, sometimes when I'm talking to somebody who's expressing suicidal thoughts or ideations, when I really get to it, there's an aspect of their life that is painful and they want to end, and so they will articulate it like, I want my life to end, because it feels like it's pervasive across their whole life. But what they're really saying is, I need to address this issue. This needs to end. It's killing me, but people do misinterpret that, and people then actually sometimes do commit suicide, misinterpreting some of this pain that they're having, not to minimize it or make it that simple, but
Right, of course.
yeah. Okay, I have something that I want to read something else. This is something that you put in your social media.
Okay.
In order to improve your relationship with your teen daughter, she has to feel good in your presence.
Yep.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I guess I'm going to start with myself. I'm going to be a little vulnerable. When I was growing up, I did not feel that in my mother's presence. And because I didn't feel accepted or celebrated or wanted for who I was, what the result was a pretty bitchy teenager. You know, I was not fun to be around. And it was basically a very immature response like, oh, you don't like me? Well, I don't like you either, which got us nowhere. So fast forwarding to today, I can think of a mom that I was just working with this week. This mom is very dedicated and devoted to her children. She really wants to have a close relationship with them. But based on patterns, she's struggling. I'll talk about with one of her daughters, and you know, she'll you know, her daughter will be around her and she'll say like, she's just acting like a little bitch. And my daughter, she just comes to me when she wants money. And then, is it okay if I cuss on this podcast?
Yes, we cuss a lot
Okay.
on this podcast.
Okay. I mean, I work with teenagers, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of cussing.
Yeah.
And so the daughter is like being really rude and bitchy to the mom. And the mom's like, I just want to look at her and tell her to fuck off. And so the mom is angry at her daughter, like, why are you not nicer to me? And, you know, why do you speak to me that way? And so what I was talking about with this mom, and I could see that it landed, it's not only about what you say. I say often it's about your energy. I can walk into a room and I can feel your energy without even speaking to you. I can feel whether it's positive or negative. So I said, your daughter is feeling your fuck off energy. So anyone that is healthy mentally and emotionally would protect themselves from fuck off energy. Who would say, oh, I want to be around that some more?
Yeah.
Nobody. So that landed. So this is in alignment with that quote you just read. I said, think about when your daughter was a little toddler. You gave and you gave and you gave and you gave some more. Changing diapers and feeding and holding and bathing and reading and putting to bed. And you got very little back. It was a lot of giving. In this, and it paid off, right? There was probably some sweet spots there in elementary school where she was nice to you and smiled and hugged you. Here we are. We're back in that dynamic where if you want to repair and build and grow this relationship of connection and love and sweetness and kindness and sharing, you're going to be giving a lot more than you're getting right now. And the payoff is coming. You're dropping love drops in this love bucket every day. So if you want her to want to be with you and to share with you, be honest and open and loving and kind, it starts with you. It starts with your energy. You're the parent. You're the role model. She's the child with the underdeveloped brain who's learning.
And I think that's such an important message for parents to hear, because all kids, no matter what is going on, are difficult at times. It's the condition of youth, and sometimes parents really do take it as a, you know, sometimes parents will play the victim role, right? Like, my child is you know, victimizing me, and I think that's really hard. And you know, people will then they carry that out, that energy, that then they reflect back. So now I'm defensive and you're defensive, and it just keeps carrying on, and it goes deeper and deeper. And you know, I think that that's a message that what you just shared is a message that I think a lot of parents need to hear. Is I need to think about, what energy am I putting off, and am I having gratitude for at all? You know, I think a characteristic of healthier, happier people is just kind of approaching life with a good amount of gratitude.
Absolutely.
Because even in that difficult moment with your child, there's many things you could be grateful for.
100%.
Yeah. So this is probably a good transition for the show. You know, you work a lot with teenage girls, but you work with the parents of tweens and teenage girls also. Tell me a little bit more about that work. I mean, we've kind of already identified a lot of times it's the parents that need more help than the child itself. You know, so talk to me about how that work goes and what you do with them.
Yeah, that's a little bit different in that I work with parents on an as needed basis. So there might be parents that I work with, weekly for a year. There might be parents that I meet with monthly. It just depends on their needs. Some parents just call me when something comes up and they need help in that moment. And it's all great. Whatever they need, I'm here for it. And it really runs the gamut, about what it is that they're seeking help with. But I would say a theme that runs throughout really is communicating in such a way that there's mutual respect so that you can be heard, they can be heard. And also really, I think, transitioning the relationship where you can allow for their identity to grow, you can allow for the independence that's necessary while also maintaining guidance and influence versus control that you had when they were younger. So those are some big themes, but a lot of it is really about connection, is having a good, loving, respectful relationship with this child that's growing into an adult.
Yeah, and that's hard for a lot of parents because depending on their upbringing, like what is their skill, what is their level of skill at communicating love, at telling, at loving, feeling themselves, feeling loved enough to also emit love. I think there's, for a lot of people, there's, so an example from my childhood is my mom was a single. I never knew my biological father, so already off the bat, I felt like, oh, I am I'm unwanted. I mean, it's a story. You talk about storytelling, right? As a young child, you just tell yourself that story, and then because my mom was a single mom, she wasn't around that much because she was working and trying to put food on the table, and But the story I tell myself is no one wants to be around me,
Yes.
and so I start acting out and my mom also grew up in, her own challenges. So where I'm really going with this fast forward is that, now I'm a parent and I'm having to learn how to tell my kids that I love them and that they are wanted and that, even when they're being assholes, even when, things are really ugly. So I guess that was a really long-winded way of me wanting to ask you, what if you had to boil it down to a couple key things about parenting? Like, what do kids need? Like, as a parent, what can you tell us? There's a lot of parents listening probably right now. At the very basic level, what do kids need? How can I be the best parent possible?
That's a big question. I think I'll start by saying, I think when we give birth or become parents to this child, it's a really natural feeling to feel like this person is mine. This person is an extension of me. And this is mine. And everything that this kid says or does out in the world reflects on me. I think that if we can really separate from that belief and see this child as separate, and you talk about gratitude, looking at this child and saying, wow, thank you for choosing me to be your mom or your dad or your guardian. I'm here to support you, to accept you, to love you, to celebrate you for who you are that is very different from me. You're not here to be me. You're not here to be your siblings. We don't need another Barb. We need you. That's why you're here. So the more that we can kind of separate our ego and really allow to kind of, I think, look with curiosity, like, who is this child? What matters to them? Like, what drives them? What turns them on? And really allow for that, make room for that, be curious about it, celebrate it, and really ask, how can I support them? How can I help them to feel accepted and loved for exactly who they are? Maybe C's are the best grades they can make. Who cares? Maybe they're not here to make A's, but they're going to be amazing in something else. So it's like really challenge yourself to really set aside what you believe they should be, or what you believe success looks like, or what you believe a good child looks or acts like. So, I say that my son is my greatest teacher. I think our children are our greatest teachers. So often I had to say, wow, he is nothing like me in this way. I could double down and I could be the colonel in the house because I was raised by one. I could double down and I could try to control him, and I could try to squash his independence and his spirit. And all that would happen is it would sever our relationship, and he would probably do a lot of lying. Mm-hmm. And he would do what he's going to do. And that is not what I wanted. So I knew I have got to change the way that I thought I was going to parent this child, and the way that I was parented will not work with this child. Because I don't want to kill his spirit.